Okay, just a quick book review again. I found this in the little free library outside the food cooperative store, and this was just published this year. The author is a activist in New York City, and he does a climate clock. And I noticed a promo quote from an activist friend of mine from Minneapolis who is now getting a PhD in sociology. And I had emailed him maybe a couple years ago, maybe like 3 years ago, saying that we were doomed. I told him we were doomed. And that's what this book is about how to deal with the fact that we are doomed. And it has an interview with Guy McPherson, who is considered the sort of main professor, arguing that we're doomed already. And then you have a Joanna Macy, who's an eco-feminist, Buddhist activist. And there's a quote from Patrick Rainsborough, who became a very prominent activist, and he also started out doing his Green Corps training in Minneapolis around the same time that this other fellow is quoted in here, Jonathon Smucker. He was in Minneapolis, and he had interviewed me, Jonathon Smucker. Well, he was going by a different name back then, activist name. And I forgot this phone doesn't focus. Anyway, it's a pretty good book. It's a book of interviews with a lot of the main doom activists. So it's an overview of the eco-doom scene. And it's pretty much the same claim that I've always had. I knew we were doomed since 1996. When I'd been working for Greenpeace, and I had already been doing intense environmental activism for about 10 years since high school. And let's see if I can get the dirt off this camera. That can work. Anyway, so this guy's known as like a humorist. He's got these flow charts in here, and I guess the idea is, to move into the gallows humor stage and to sort of enjoy life despite our state of doom. And there's a lady in here that says, we need more healers. I think there's a lot of good interviews in here. So let me try to get the camera cleaned off here, the lens. Is that going to focus now? Still not focusing. Okay, so basically, he interviews somebody else who agrees with Guy McPherson, but you can tell he's trying to you can tell he doesn't really want to accept Guy McPherson. He wants to he wants to find, reasons why we should keep doing activism. And my argument has always been, well, you do activism because you don't have a choice. Mother Nature is in charge, and you try to live within the boundaries of Mother Nature, the cycles or whatever, to respect it, or else Mother Nature takes over and wipes everything out. And so that's what's happening right now, is Mother Nature is wiping everything out. And he does mention the methane bomb, so to speak, in the East Siberian Arctic shelf. It gets a bit of a mention in terms of how that's the emphasis of Guy McPherson. And I had actually told Jonathon Smucker about Guy McPherson. I never made the connection. I wonder if Jonathon Smucker is of Smucker family fame. I don't know. At any rate, this is, which, like I said, I'm just trying to get the camera to focus. It's not focusing. So I just speed read the book because I was already familiar with pretty much all the activists. So you get into more of a deep ecology perspective where, basically we're part of nature, and it's not as much of a deep ecology perspective as I would like, but he does have a great interview with the the sweetgrass lady, the native Anishinaabe. She wrote a book about sweetgrass or something. She's like an ethnobotanist type, and my one of my relatives read that book and really liked it, and so the author of the book, he's about the same age as me. He's a little older. He's in his late 50s. He's about to turn 60. And so he said, he got involved in nuclear activism in the 80s. That's pretty much, I knew some people who had been involved in that. My activist mentor was part of that too. The Sane Freeze movement, I'm assuming. I did activism around nuclear issues as well. Basically, it's, if you take a more structural critique of our crisis, then you can understand what's driving it. And I just wrote another little rant this morning about non-commutativity and how that answers a certain paradox in physics, where the paradox assumes that time is symmetrical as a symmetric spatial invariance, a spatial measurement. And I think that really gets at the core problem of Western civilization. They get into like a left brain, right brain thing, but he doesn't really get into the full body transformation as much. He does talk about a rock climbing experience he had where he basically barely survived death. He had a near-death experience essentially while rock climbing. And this camera still doesn't focus, so I'm trying to read. What does it say here? It says, basically he's written a bunch of other books, and he lives in New York City, and he does a storytelling ritual called the Climate Ribbon. I'm guessing he must have known, he probably knows Patrick Rainsborough, because the whole, whenever you use storytelling in activism, that's like Patrick Rainsborough started the group called Smart Meme. That was his business, was about storytelling as like grassroots media strategy. And that's not really my thing. Like, I don't think that activists are not, like, a lot of time activists, they get blamed as the problem because they're not properly marketing themselves to the public. You have to try to convince the public to be better, to get involved or whatever. You have to win them over with a marketing campaign or something, some kind of storytelling that appeals to the public. Well, I'm of the view that the science speaks for itself, and that science is also the problem. So science is like deer in the headlights. When as scientists, they can tell us the problem, but they're not going to be able to solve the problem. And so we can use science to kind of reverse engineer the cause of the problem. That's the role of science now. It's like science is our religion that we can use to escape science, essentially. So yeah, I'm not seeing a lot of the deep, like, he talks about existentialism and how he read Camus. That was actually the most favorite part of the book for me, because I've never really read Camus. I've read other existentialists, Kafka. Anyway, all this like strategic analysis about why we should act or whether we should act, it doesn't seem relevant to me. It's like you do activism because you don't have a choice, and a lot of the environmental activists are getting murdered all the time at a high rate, especially in Latin America, because nobody likes to be told that they can't support their family. In order to raise a family, you got to go out and extract resources, and so then you run into some environmentalist telling you can't cut down the trees, or you can't pollute, you can't mine, or whatever you're going to do. Then of course those environmentalists are going to get murdered, and that's just, so my view is, well, if you can avoid, like Noam Chomsky said, he'd rather not be a martyr. I'd rather not be a martyr, and just let Mother Nature take care of the problem, and that Mother Nature is gonna wipe out. A lot of this books are like, well, is human civilization gonna survive or not? Well, to me, it's not. It's not about human civilization. It's about life on Earth, and that's Guy McPherson's big point, is that we're facing biological annihilation of all life on Earth, not just humans. And so this guy, this is the book Braiding Sweetgrass. So anyway, I feel like it's a valiant effort to engage with Guy McPherson's ideas a bit, but actually the interview of Guy, it's not that long in the beginning, the interview of Guy McPherson. It's, he keeps going back to Guy McPherson, but I still feel like he doesn't really. He mentions the methane as being, well, it hasn't. We haven't had the abrupt eruption yet of the methane. There's Guy McPherson. But the thing is that it's not just the methane. There's so many other factors involved, like the aerosol masking effect. I didn't notice any much mention of the aerosol masking effect in this book. Maybe it's probably in here somewhere. But I think a lot of this book, it's like the people he interviews, they pretty much live on the West Coast. I'm guessing he just made a trip from New York to San Francisco, and he interviewed like several people in Berkeley, and then he drove down to Los Angeles. He interviewed somebody in Los Angeles, and then he went back to the East Coast and he interviewed some people on the East Coast. But like I said, Patrick Rainsborough and this Jonathon Smucker, he was part of a website for John Michael Greer also that was called The Last Wizards, and that was back around 1996. Also, no, actually it was like 2000, 2004, 2006 maybe. So I'm just saying this guy knows a lot of the same activist type of people that I have known in the past. But I got more into meditation. I realized we were doomed in 96, and then by 2000 I had gone deep into meditation, and that was soon after. That was actually the last time I saw Jonathon Smucker, he's mentioned in here. He was going by a different name, like I said, in Minneapolis, because we were doing direct action, and at the time that was the biggest police raid in Minnesota history, was for this direct action. But I was trying to get them to take more of a legal route, like a lawsuit route. So yeah, here's Jerome Foster with the climate clock. But here we go. Get some kind of. It's almost. It's kind of. Still not getting the focus. So I don't know. Is it a good book? Well, it's pretty good. It's a little bit too much on the policy activist scene and not enough on the actual ecological science. Like he mentions how, if you rely on Guy McPherson's sources, but he doesn't ever actually dig into Guy McPherson's sources. He doesn't do a deep dive into Guy McPherson's sources. And so here's the quote from Jonathon Matthew Smucker. This guy went by an activist name in Minneapolis when he was here, along with Patrick Rainsborough. He was actually here a little after Patrick Rainsborough. I think they overlapped a little bit. So, So anyway, it was worth, this book was, it took me like an hour to do a speed read through it. And I suppose I should go put it back in the free library where I got it. It's a good book, though. I'll probably I'll give it a go once more and look for any other little nuggets that I missed. He's got, the flow chart is. I looked at that. It's interesting, but yeah, he mentions here strategic aerosol injection for geoengineering. He's even got a Zizek quote. Yeah, it's it's a little bit too just like traditional leftist kind of stuff. But anyway, he doesn't talk about the San Bushmen or the our original human culture. There's a lot that doesn't get talked about. But he in his interview with Guy McPherson says, well, humans have been around for about 200,000 years. So it's like, okay, well, that's the San Bushman culture from 200,000 years ago. That's the San Bushmen. They're still around today. Well, what did they do to survive? So it's interesting. It's an all right book. And basically, it's like, well, the New Green Deal, that's a good thing to work on. But again, if you're not really taking the science seriously, and that's what Guy McPherson's all about. He's not about policy as much as he's about the science, the environmental science. So when you combine the aerosol masking effect with being twice as bad as previously thought, along with the methane bomb from the world's largest ocean shelf, then that's what's called the Guy McPherson paradox. And I don't know if this book even really grapples with the Guy McPherson paradox. It sort of dances around it. And that's so I'm going to leave it at that.